Today we are talking old movies and scabies.
What a hook.
Thought that would get some attention going.
Life as a mom, entrepreneur, wife, friend, and human is a lot. Join me, Katie Jacobs.
And me, Brandy Chandler, every Thursday as we have unfiltered, hilarious, and relatable conversations about the ups, the downs, and the chaos of it all.
Pour a glass and pull up a seat.
Because you're always welcome at our table.
Hi, Katie.
Hi, Brandy.
Are you ready to get itchy?
Yes.
So, welcome to She Did What?
She did what?
So, today we are talking about the 7-year
Year itch. What's the 7-year itch, Brandy?
Well, Webster says it's restlessness or dissatisfaction at the 7-year mark.
Okay, for people who are under 40, Webster's a dictionary.
Yes. Well, they're online.
Also,
too.
they didn't work real hard at that definition.
No.
Okay.
I think we all. Well, I mean, some people may have never even heard the phrase. I don't know.
And it's made popular.
Yeah, by the movie with Marilyn Monroe, with the iconic scene, the white dress, the subway train blowing it up.
And the weird guy who is standing
So
beside her, like
weird.
unimpressed.
So I've not watched the whole movie, but we watched that clip.
It's so
and it's
weird,
just
y'all.
Bizarre.
We'll link to the clip. It is so fucking
He's
weird.
just like standing
He's
back
like,
watching,
Marilyn.
but he's not like liking
She's like,
it.
"Ooh, this breeze," and he's like, "Well, goodness, put some more clothes on or something." And you're just like, "This is so not a man's reaction to fucking Marilyn
And
Monroe
she
having her
seems-
skirt blow
well,
up."
and she's so beautiful, but
She's
she
so
seems so
beautiful.
fake. The acting was so bad.
Well, yeah, any old movie. I mean, that's kind of the
I
case.
don't
but
know. Like
we all need. Let's watch it. Let's have movie club. Watch this movie and then analyze.
only showing her ankles too.
Yeah, she's like, "Oh," but she's like, "Oh," and he's
She's
like,
really into this breeze.
and he is not, which is just anyway.
Oh, but the phrase actually comes from like 300 BC's,
That's so hot.
referring to scabies.
Even hotter. I thought it couldn't get hotter. Here we are.
So there is your history lesson today, brought to you from Katie and Brandy at She Did What?
Brandy always brings the facts. I just kind of bring.
I just think it's so funny when you like look at really where these things came from.
Yeah.
So we are referring to the 7-year itch more in the time of restlessness. I think it very clearly is in reference to relationships.
Yes.
But I think it can be very valid for jobs, hobbies, friendship relationships, not just romantic relationships, and a plethora of other situations.
I think it's a time of feeling, and JJ, actually, we were talking to him before we recorded, and he defined it really well. It's like where you're just kind of like cruising, just a little like things are becoming maybe a little monotonous.
Yeah. And I think, we live in a time where people get tired of things really fast.
15-second attention span.
So a lot of this needs to be some self-study where you really are saying, am I just tired of this in the moment? Is it just a little old and boring? Or do I really need to change something? Am I really over this? Am I really ready to move on? Because there's a big difference between those things.
I think one of the things that we can speak to today is the fact that we've been in very long marriages and we've experienced these ups and downs, and hopefully we can help clear some of that up for some of the younger listeners.
Yes.
Or some of the listeners who haven't been in relationships as long. They don't have to necessarily be younger, who are questioning things and how we can sort of navigate those waters. Because I would say a lot of when we were younger, having these sort of questions come up, you couldn't really talk about them.
No. And your parents didn't talk about them with you?
Certainly not. You didn't have a way to navigate this.
Yes.
So let's hop in. Tell me about, have you ever felt the 7-year itch, and what did it look like?
So yes. Well, yes and no. I don't think I've really experienced a 7-year itch where I've just been like dissatisfied and restless with my marriage. But we have hit some really hard times where we've been throwing that divorce word around.
Yeah.
Like 2 that I can think of in particular. And
I can think of 2 as well.
Oh.
How interesting. We've both been married since what year?
2006.
Yeah, it was 2000.
So that's about
January
right.
2008. Yeah.
Which mine.
So guys, if you've been married twice, that's your average. The D word twice.
Once every decade, you're going to want to
There
really
you go.
get rid of someone for a few
You're
days.
going to want to give them the boot.
Well, but I think the 7-year thing is pretty valid because we were married a little younger in our early 20s. And when we were coming up on 10 years, some of our other friends were coming up on like their 7, 8 year. And we had a handful of friends get divorced right all at the same time.
Right.
And we were kind of like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Like what's happening? And I think that it might have been this situation.
The 7-year itch.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or at least you've been in it. I don't know if they just suddenly got dissatisfied or they were in it long enough to realize it wasn't working.
Sure.
You know,
It could be either of those things. And that's kind of, I think, the itch. It's not something you can define.
Yeah.
Like, is it scabies or is it eczema? Who knows?
do you need some Aquaphor or prescription?
We gotta understand. We gotta dig a little deeper.
So, yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I can remember the first time pretty specifically. My husband was coaching baseball, and we had been. So when he graduated, before he graduated, he was drafted and he played professional baseball, and we would live together for a little bit in off season, then not live together. And we sort of always had a lot of change, and we never knew where he was going to be. And I never quite knew where I fit into things. And then we moved in. I remember we signed our first lease for a year, and it felt like such a big deal. We'd already been married for a few years, and we'd never really lived together. And he started coaching, and he was gone even more. Like, I thought I would see him. My friends thought I had a pretend husband. They had never met him. He would leave at 5 a.m. and he would come home at 11, 12 at night, 7 days a week. I never saw my husband, like, ever. Not 7 days a week, but for game weeks. I mean, it was a lot. Like, I didn't see him. And I remember thinking, like, I remember feeling lonely in my marriage. And I remember thinking, is this right? Is there something better? Is this how I should be feeling? I mentioned in, I think, our sex episode, like, that's never been the issue for us. Like, that's always been great. It was just that needing to feel like someone's around to, see if I'm okay or whatever. And it's not that he didn't want to do that or couldn't do that. It was like, he just, that was his job.
Yeah. Well, and you telling that story brings up a good point. So both of our 2 times where we've been really serious about should we continue with this relationship have been not about my husband and I and how we're getting along, but a lot of other factors. One was work. And I remember another time where a family was a big part playing into it. So it was outside factors that, were interfering with our relationship. So it wasn't really our take on each other, but it was just this outside stress creeping in. So I think that's an important thing to distinguish when you're feeling the stress or the itch.
The second time for us that things got, like, kind of hairy was similar. Like, there were just so many things going on. There was just a lot of strain and a lot of stress, and we felt like we weren't connecting. And I would say that one was less of an itch. It was just more of a, like, oh my God, like, we have to figure this out because I don't feel like I can move forward in a marriage in this capacity with this tension. As I'm getting older, I'm getting so tension averse. I really hate it.
Yeah.
I don't want to be anywhere near it. Every day is difficult there's
just not time for it.
When you have 3 kids who you're constantly worried about, and when you have, you're married and you are, like, we have a business that we run, and it's just like, I just don't want tension. I want everything outside of the stress to be easy. And when the marriage becomes hard, or when the relationship, because we're not just speaking to marriage, we're speaking to any relationship. When the relationship becomes hard, I just feel like I want an out. I feel like I get like, I'm scared I'm going to live my life like this. And that's not the reality, right?
Yeah.
But in that moment, that can be how it can feel very heavy to me. And I don't know any other way to describe
that
it.
stress to be over.
I just want it done.
Yeah, you're desperate to get rid of it.
Desperate to get rid of it. It reminds me of having my babies. It's like I just want this pain to end so I can experience joy again.
Yeah.
And that's what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So how close have you ever been to divorce?
I mean, like I said, there have been 2 times. I have never talked to an actual lawyer.
Okay.
I've threatened to.
I'm going to make the call tomorrow.
And I think that would be true of my husband as well. I don't think he's actually talked to a divorce lawyer. But
He's
there
got one
were
in his back
2
pocket.
times where we were just really at ends.
Intensely talking about the D word.
Yeah.
How did you get past that? For anyone who's in that right now, someone might be listening, experiencing that right now. How did you get over that hump?
So I don't have any practical advice, but I think we just, in talking through it and thinking about it, I think we just realized we really feel, well, I say Josh feels this way. I would think he does. I really feel like God put us together and we were intended to be married. There were just so many things that went into us ending up together that are just preordained, destined situations that we could not have manhandled ourselves. So I always just come back to that. Like, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I realize the true tension of the situation was not our marriage. Mm-hmm. It was outside factors. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that just pulls at me every time. Thankfully, you know, a little voice comes up and says, remember, this is exactly where you're supposed to be.
Sure.
You just got to work through the messes.
Okay.
What about you?
I'm going to recommend an expensive whisper fight.
What is an expensive whisper fight?
Okay. Yes to all of that, but if you
what
don't
I do.
feel that. No, listen. 2 things. I'll talk about the expensive whisper fight.
Okay. I'm interested.
I know you are. I can see it in your eyes. My long-term vision of my life is my husband and I. Him. He's there next to me in an Adirondack chair, looking at the mountains, drinking coffee, watching the sun come up, talking about our children and our lives and reflecting. And that's us aging. Those are my golden years. That is my vision. And I keep my eye on that prize.
I love that.
So that's one thing. That he is my person, even when we are making each other crazy. We know that about each other, that we are going to go through these tough times, but we're going to be able to get back together. And I have that confidence now after this long being in this relationship because I've been through these highs and lows. And now I know, okay, there's another side of this. But there have been times where I didn't know if there was another side. One of those times, we had a date night scheduled. We were throwing the D word around. I said, I'm canceling date night, calling the sitter off. He's like, why don't we just go? We went to a very nice restaurant. We whisper fought for 3 hours. We spent a fuck ton of money. It was the most expensive meal probably I've ever had. I don't know why. I don't think we were even thinking about what we're eating or drinking or enjoying it. We were just arguing in a whisper. I was like, oh, but then you and because I think we had to whisper, and because we were in public and had to keep it like very low key, I think we were able to actually debate our points in a way that helped us see each other. And by the time we got in the car, we were better.
Well, sometimes you just have to have the fight. Just get it out. Get all the things inside out.
Yeah, but it can be hard when you come from different backgrounds, you grow up different ways. Fighting does not look the same.
Yeah.
And I don't even like to use the word fighting because it's too violent for me. I like to use the word an argument.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay to argue. I don't think it's okay to fight. I think fighting is really, really, it's a good way to end a divorce. I think an argument, and I think if things, I've learned this in all of the time because I had to do a lot of work through therapy to not have a temper. I had to do psychosomatic work to learn to calm my nervous system because I could literally see red. So I don't think fighting is healthy. I think it's detrimental to a relationship. I think arguing is healthy. And I think to take it a step further, I think your children seeing you disagree, not argue or fight, but disagree and then come back together is really healthy. So
That's
have
important.
Those sorts of steps. I don't let our children see us argue or fight, but I let them see us disagree.
And that's funny that you said that. And I think this is important because my husband and I, were, when I was leaving the family business, we were talking about that situation. And so we were both talking kind of angrily and loudly, not at each other, but about the situation.
I've been there.
And my kids thought we were fighting. And I'm like, no, we are on the same page. We're just fired up about what's going on. So I think that is a good point to bring up and to put in a thought in people's minds.
My foot is so asleep.
I know.
Woo! Okay. So these are important distinctions. And guys, let me tell y'all something out there. This is hard fought and hard won.
Yeah.
I had to make all these mistakes.
Yeah.
So that I could sit here and
it's a
have this
constant
conversation.
Work in progress.
I
too.
also had to look really deeply at myself and the fucked up things that I thought were okay and go, you have to break every bit of this back and become a new person.
Yeah.
And you have to do therapy and you have to figure out the therapy that works for you. So first I did talk and then I did psychosomatic, which changed my life. And I had to learn that my nervous system had this way of reacting, fight or flight. Mm-hmm. And I'm a fighter. And I had to start learning how to work with what I had in order to calm it down. Mm-hmm. And that rebuilding was so important for me to have a healthy marriage. And I started to realize that I fighting was never going to be okay and it was never going to be good. An argument is okay, but it's got to be in a healthy way. If I'm feeling very heated, it's time to walk away.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to realize that.
Well, and I think
specifically I'm going to make one more distinction. Feels important. Specifically having children. I knew I could never, I didn't want them in that cycle.
Well, you want to set them up for the best possible relationship in their future.
Exactly.
So any tools you can give them or any lessons you can learn for them.
And I am not perfect, guys, but I try
wonderful.
Really hard. Anyway.
I was going to say, there's an iconic story my husband has about me. We had only been married maybe a year or two, and we were in an argument, and I said,
oh no.
Oh, it's just so funny. I said, if we weren't married, we would have broken up by now.
Oh, if I haven't threatened that one a couple times.
But it's so important because I am committed to you and we are going to work this out.
We're going to get through it.
But that's how much I love you, because if we weren't married, I would be out of here.
If there wasn't a lot of paperwork that I do not want to go through.
But to me, that's a sign of my commitment. Like, I am in this, I'm going to argue it out with you. Mm-hmm. But other people would not have gained this opportunity.
No.
But I think that's just, you're going to argue. You might even fight, whichever word you like to use. But if you really know deep down that the other person is committed and will work through it as much as you will, you're going to be okay.
I think if you're also conversely, if you don't fight, if you don't argue, if you've given up, if you've just given up,
then you know.
Maybe Maybe if you're just like, I don't even have it in me anymore. See? I'm just so like, I don't even care enough about this person to get involved with that. Like, maybe that's the sign that it's time to walk. Because I think we also are trying to distinguish, like, when is it time to walk? When is it time to stay involved? For me, it's that vision, the mountain with coffee with my husband vision.
Do you still have the vision? Yes. Are
you still
wanting to fight? No.
Do you still want to fuck?
Well, that was another episode. But yeah, that's very important.
Sex is important. I think a sexless relationship that's romantic can probably be difficult. I've never been there.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that.
It's probably hard.
Maybe someone.
Pun intended. Well, it's not hard. No, I think that would be hard. And I think we talked about that in the sex episode.
I think some people want no sex companionship. That's their ultimate.
If both people want that, great.
Yeah. I think that's an option for some people, especially older people.
Well, yeah, of course.
I'm just saying.
Well, I think as you get older, it's like, okay, we both recognize that, my hip hurts and your back is not so great.
So I'm there already.
What's the right angle here? But
we diverge.
Okay, we've diverged. Okay, sorry. How do you spice it up? If you are still romantically in love, okay, so we recognize that potentially you could just want a partnership. Maybe we need to make sure both people are on that page. If one doesn't, one does. Maybe that's a problem.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there, seeing if it sticks. But how do you spice it up?
I don't have any specific spices I throw in there. Life just spices itself for me.
Doesn't it though? What you told me off camera, I will not repeat.
I have spice in storage.
Does she ever? So
What do you spice it up with?
I think,
Oregano?
you know, I like tarragon.
Some olive oil?
Maybe. I think spicing it up is evolving sexually together. Like we have definitely evolved, I would say, sexually together too.
This has turned into another sex episode.
I love to talk about sex. We all know this.
It's supposed to be about scabies.
I'm sorry, I missed that memo. It's about the 7-year itch. And sometimes going back to spending some time together and then also recognizing that like things can evolve sexually too. Like we can be like a little, I don't know.
You
Get a little weird. I don't know.
spoke before about, what was it, telling your story to each other in public?
Oh yes,
That
I
was
love
nice.
that one. Okay, it's not so horny. What we like to
You're
do.
welcome, audience.
Sorry, guys. I get all worked up.
It is hot. I'm having a hot flash.
Okay, so one of the things I would say, if you're looking to spice it up a little bit, if you're feeling a little stagnant, go on a date and tell the story of how you first met and fell in love. It is such a great way. You'll feel that little tingle again. You'll feel that little like, oh, that was fun. That was cute. Oh, you did this. Remember that happened and remember this little thing. And did I ever tell you that this had gone on in order for me to take you on that, whatever. Like, and you'll just like almost like recover that story and recover a bit of that freshness from the beginning.
I will say, you told me that story, and my husband and I were at a party a couple of weeks ago, and we met some new people, and they asked how we ended up together. And my husband told the story, and he knew it. He knew all the parts. I was so proud of him.
I would hope he was there for it.
Well, sometimes men are like,
Yeah.
we went on a date.
Bang, bang, 3 kids later.
But he told it in the real way, and I was so proud of him. But it did. It spiced it up.
It does spice it up. And you mentioned once
It's
to
like
me.
Tabasco.
It is. I prefer Louisiana. You mentioned it once to me. Oh, Louisiana. That sounds good on some eggs right now. I'm hungry. You mentioned once to me that telling your kids the story
Yes.
is really fun too.
Yeah.
You forget they're actually super interested when they're like,
They
oh wait, yeah,
are.
mom and dad met one
They
time.
love
That's
to watch
crazy.
the wedding video.
Yeah.
Because we were so young.
Well, I don't like to relive that because I had the
Thin,
norovirus.
Tan, long hair.
Yeah, I had all that though.
You were thin, tan with long hair? Was
Yeah.
it blonde?
No.
Mine was blonde.
No, it was actually this hair. Okay, so in The Whispers, in our book club book by Ashley Audrain, the character Blair says, marriage isn't about love. It's about our choices. And she has chosen this person, this life. What do you think? Yay or nay?
Well, it's not that
Smash or
simple.
pass?
It's not that simple for me. Well, I like to think marriage is a little bit about love. I think that's a very bold statement, but I also think it's about choices. Like I said, that comment I made to Josh when we were early married, if we weren't married, we would be broken up by now. So it is a choice we make constantly to be together and be committed. But I love him very much.
Right.
And that's what got us here. And I love him even when we're fighting. So I think it's partially true, the statement. What do you think?
I think it's true. I think you have to have love.
Yeah.
And specifically, I think it helps to have... Listen, my opinion is you have to have romantic love too. I think that's an important part of the sauce. Now, romantic love will change with age or whatever, but I think for me, I can only speak from my experience. And my experience is if I did not have romantic love and I just had like, oh, I love him like my buddy, like loved him like I love you, that wouldn't be enough for me to feel fulfilled. I would need that excitement of love.
And going back
Like,
to
don't you get a little
statement.
excited when you know you're going to have date night and get frisky? Okay. That I couldn't live without that.
Yeah.
I couldn't
you
live
couldn't
just
live without
going
sex.
home. No, it's the anticipation of, it's the
Oh, the
excitement
lead up,
around.
yes.
It's the little
flirting.
thrill, the flirting, the fucking flirt of it all. I love to flirt.
I'm really feeling it.
I know. Well, I'm passionate about it because I think that's so important. I love to flirt with my husband. When my husband and I are flirting, y'all better.
I'm telling you, I think I have to leave right now and let JJ come in.
Okay, probably.
But to that point,
This room's a rockin', don't come knocking, baby.
Marriage isn't about love, it's about our choices. So what if you have love and you or your partner are making bad choices?
That happens.
Yeah.
I know situations where that happens.
That's a recipe for disaster, I think.
I think everyone's situation is different. And my experience with this specific thing is that it's going to go one of two ways. It's going to either end or you're going to come out stronger.
Yeah.
And I can think of a few instances where the people involved have come out stronger.
Mm-hmm.
And I think and it's been really beautiful to see that you can make a bad choice and come back from it. And if you are out there making a bad choice right now and you feel like it's a bad choice and you want your relationship to work, like you can come back from it. I hope that gives some people hope. Or if your partner has made a bad choice, like I've seen it work. I've seen it happen with some friends and it's going to be difficult. You're going to have a lot of work to do, but you can come back from it. And like, if we don't have hope, what else do we have? Right. Mm-hmm. Like you
and
have
maybe
to have
that goes back to, do you believe in something greater pulling you together? So if you do, and there have been bad choices,
destiny, God, whatever it might be, perhaps.
Oh, interesting.
I want to talk about temptation.
Yes.
So I read this book and I think this is, more of innocent temptation. So I read this book and guys, I'm so sorry. I read it on a Kindle for a long time and I stopped that because I could never remember a book or an author. This is a book about a woman who goes through a divorce and it's the relationship between she and her mother and her grandmother. And it's very much a wiser than me kind of situation and the support of women. Her grandmother, they're riding in the car in LA and her grandmother looks at her and says, in my day, we didn't have any of this shit. We would go to a dinner party, flirt our asses off, go home with our, I'd go home with your grandpa and we would make love. You would go home with your spouse and make love because you got to see him in a different light.
Yeah.
I think that sort of like, not temptation, but that sort of seeing your partner in the light of like, oh, like they're like walking around working this room. Yeah, okay, that's so hot. Charismatic. That's hot. And I think a little flirt's okay, in fact. I think it's okay to have a little dinner party flirt. You're not like, don't be gross.
Innocent.
But a little like, haha.
No touching.
No touchy. Not at all. No touching. Hell no. That's going to be a hell no for me.
Very serious about the touching.
There have been times where I've seen JJ kind of like flirt it up a little and I'm like, that's hot. He's mine.
Yeah.
I think that's sort of I think temptation, not in a nefarious way, but in sort of a healthy way can be good. And I think we have sort of lost that. It's like the temptation is now someone sliding into the DMs. Well, that's really gross.
Well, and you also, you see your spouse or partner or whoever you're in a relationship with, you see them at home, you see them in the same environments all the time. Yes. So just getting out and kind of getting your eyes renewed to who they really are. Yeah, I can see where that would be very inspiring.
It's like seeing someone through the lens of like, they're still a very like, I don't know, like look at them, look at everything they are. Because I think sometimes something just occurred to me, when you get in those bad places in a relationship, I think oftentimes you are so focused, hyper-focused on the negative. Well, why'd you get in this thing?
Yeah.
What are the great attributes about this person? What do you love about them? And that, again, it's telling that story of how we met. It reminds you of why you fell for this person. And does that still exist?
Yeah.
Because you forget. I'm so mad right now about this, that, and the other. And I'm so stressed about this, that, and the other. And this is killing me and that's crushing me. Well, okay. None of that has to do with them.
Yeah. But these are all, I want to just take a moment. These are all normal relationship things. Like everybody, like if you haven't experienced this yet, you probably will.
Yeah. And it's going to be okay. It doesn't mean everything needs to crumble and end.
Yeah. So I just felt like saying that.
I'm glad you did. For a moment. Well, we all need the good baseline.
I don't want you to think I should be listening to this to avoid these situations. You're going to end up in some ruts. And
No, I think we're saying this so that you can
Yeah.
embrace them and know that A, you're not alone. B, so many, I mean, I don't want to speak for what's normal or what everyone's been through because I haven't walked in anyone else's shoes but mine, but that from my experience and my conversations, it's pretty typical.
Yeah. Yeah. Just a little look into
But
the future.
we talked to JJ a few minutes before this and he was like, I just really like being comfortable.
And I think that's I like a comfortable, predictable situation. I think that's a valid point.
I think so too. He was like, I mean, no, because when we're cruising, we're cruising.
Well, and that's what you asked me if I had any temptation. I have never been tempted by another man.
Yeah.
Like none at all.
I don't think I've ever been tempted to action, but I've been like, oh, it's kind of like nice to be flirted with. Like when my husband was never around. It was like,
know,
oh,
like,
I
what
like
do
a
you
little
want?
attention. Well, now I am. Now I'm like, I'm going to need you to step back 5 feet.
Do you need some money? What is this?
You need money.
Like, what? Why are you talking to me? What do you want me to buy? No, I'm not coming.
Wow,
to that.
Brandy, I bet you're a blast at parties. You're not coming to my dinner party to flirt.
It's so
Jeez.
funny.
I do. I like flirty people.
Okay.
I like flirty people.
No, it's fun. Yeah.
Not in a sexual way, in a like, I don't know.
Yeah. You're just like fun conversations full of energy. And maybe a little sex.
I need the Webster's definition of flirting. So, and to wrap it up in a tiny little bow, this sort of itch can apply, like you said, to other parts of life.
Yeah. I mean, job specifically. I see so many, which, when I grew up and the family and the area I grew up in, you had a job for your whole life. You did one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not the case anymore. Like people change jobs like I change pants. I mean, they are just changing it.
Yep.
And so do you want to be changing? Like, is that the path for you, or are you having the 7-year itch thing? I think that would be something to explore for some people.
Well, and to take it a step further, I wonder if the itch is not a shorter timeline now. I see a lot of, so I've been in my business up 14 years this summer. I've seen a lot of women grow up, women and men grow up. I've seen a lot of people grow up, and it's been interesting to watch the relationships evolve. And I do think maybe a little bit of the inundation of information and temptation, and the grass is always greener. We've talked about this with social media, what's happening over there. Comparison is the thief of joy. That could potentially ruin a relationship, that could be the thing that turns the 7-year itch into the 2-year itch.
I think
And people get caught up in the wrong things. And that potentially having that is it destiny? Is it what is my long-term vision for my relationship? And how does it all fit in? Because switching jobs every I think the statistic is most people who enter the workforce don't last a year in their first job.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I believe that's the statistic that I'm probably misquoting.
But yeah, I feel like our time spans for everything have shortened in recent history. So yeah, I think it would be more like a 2-3 year itch these days.
Tell us are you itching?
No, I'm good.
I wasn't asking you. I was asking them.
It's like, nope, no scabies here. I'm fine.
All right.
Yeah.
Tell the
let
thing
us know.
to finish the episode. Tell us the thing that Josh said about itching.
Oh,
I love this.
You better be careful. It might be poison oak. Like you shouldn't scratch. Like what if it's not a true 7-year itch?
What if it's just poison oak and you just gotta put some calamine on that bitch and
because if
move
you
on.
scratch, it's just gonna spread. Mm-hmm. Blew my mind this morning.
Well, I think that's sometimes the bad choice. Right?
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's why it's important when you're having restlessness, dissatisfaction, to really explore it and don't act immediately.
Don't explore the root of it. Don't explore restlessness.
Don't start itching all over.
Don't jump
Don't
into
change
bed
your
with
whole life.
No.
Like, let's narrow this down, figure out what the problem is.
Sure.
Do the pros and cons.
Whatever
all the
helps you get
things.
through. Talk to us.
Just listen.
Just listen. Talk.
We'll entertain you. We'll distract you. I think we should all watch The 7-Year Itch.
All right, let's do it and report back.
having
I gotta
a
watch that up. Y'all will be
movie
blown
club.
away. It's so funny. We should watch old movies and just be like, what?
Yeah, we'll come back at you. Maybe a short episode on the actual movie.
If you all are loving our podcast, please take a moment and review us on Apple, Spotify. please jump into YouTube and break up these
Please.
50-year-old men who are just really loving the podcast.
Please. Fix our YouTube demographic. Follow us on Instagram.
Follow us on Instagram.
Join the fun.
Do all the stuff. You're always welcome at our table. And the best way to support us, the really, really best way, is to tell 5 people, share your favorite podcast. And as always, give us lots of feedback because we love making this a discussion.
Yep. Always welcome at our table.
You're always welcome.
All right.
We love you, baddies.
See you next time.
See you soon.